I don't remember what first drew me to the cabin. Maybe it was the brochure left in my mailbox. No return address, no branding, just a folded sheet that read, "Disconnect, reconnect. The silence is waiting." The timing was uncanny. I'd just buried my father the week before. We hadn't spoken in years, but the finality of it hit harder than I expected. My therapist said grief manifests in strange ways. Maybe that's what I was chasing, strangeness. Or maybe I just wanted quiet. The drive up was uneventful, all winding roads and thinning trees, the kind that looked more like silhouettes than plants. I didn't pass another car for hours. By the time I reached the cabin, dusk had set, and everything had that gray, deadened color, like the world had been drained. The cabin was basic, no electricity, no signal, no neighbors, just a wood-burning stove, a cot, a kitchen with mismatched mugs and chipped plates, and a journal left on the table. No title, no name. Just a note inside the front cover, "For the silence." I should have left then. I remember thinking that. Not in words, but in a tightness in my chest. A sliver of something, unease, lodged just beneath my ribs. But I'd driven 4 hours. I'd packed books. I had enough dried food for a week. And part of me wanted to prove I could do it. Survive without noise. Without people. Without distraction. Day 1 was uneventful. I chopped wood, made soup, read from a dog-eared copy of The Turn of the Screw. I even started writing in the journal. Just thoughts. Dreams. Observations. The silence wasn't peaceful, though. It wasn't what I expected. It wasn't absence. It was presence. Like something held its breath just out of sight. That night, I dreamt of knocking. A slow, deliberate sound. Not on the door, but the walls. As if something was moving around the cabin, pressing its knuckles into the wooden slats. I woke in a cold sweat. The blankets twisted around my legs like restraints. I wrote it off as anxiety. Day 2, I found footprints outside. That was the first time I felt watched. Not animal tracks, not mine. Just a single line of bare human prints in the frost, circling the cabin in a lopsided ring. No start, no end, no duplicates. Just one slow, perfect loop. I told myself it was probably my own, distorted by thaw and memory. But I knew the size of my foot. I knew I hadn't walked the perimeter. That night, I didn't dream. I just lay awake, listening to nothing. But the silence felt closer, like it had learned my name. Day 3, the journal changed. My entry from the day before, 3 paragraphs I remember writing, was gone. Instead, there was a single line in cramped, slanted handwriting. "You're listening now." I stared at it for a long time. The ink was dry. The pressure had indented the page beneath. It was real, physical, not imagined. I checked every inch of the cabin. The lock on the door, the windows, the crawl space beneath the floorboards. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No sign that anyone had ever been here but me. Still, I burned the page in the stove. That night, I heard humming. A child's voice, tuneless, just outside the cabin walls. Soft enough that I almost convinced myself it was the wind or a memory leaking through the cracks of my brain. But it wasn't. It was the kind of sound that pulls at something ancient inside you, like hearing your name whispered in a crowd. It's not the content, it's the intent. And this sound didn't want to be understood. It wanted to be heard. Day 4, the forest changed. The trees were wrong, not dead, not diseased, just twisted. Like they'd leaned in imperceptibly, inch by inch. Like they were listening too. I tried to leave. I packed my bag. I walked down the path I came in on. But the road was gone. Not overgrown, Gone. Just more trees, more silence. And when I turned around, the cabin wasn't behind me. It was in front of me. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at it. My hands went numb from the cold. My breath fogged and vanished. Eventually, I went back inside. What else was there to do? The journal was open on the table, new writing, my handwriting, but I hadn't touched it. It needs stillness. You keep making noise. I didn't sleep. Not really. I kept all the lights on. Well, the lamps, the candles, the fire. I tried reading aloud. Tried playing music from an old battery-powered speaker I'd forgotten I packed. But the sound warped, slowed, became uncomfortable. Like the silence was fighting back. Day 5, I broke. I screamed. I kicked the walls. I tore the journal in half and flung the pieces into the woods. I shouted into the sky until my throat went raw. And the silence smiled. Not literally. I didn't see anything, but I felt it, like pressure behind the eyes, like approval. That was the worst part. It wanted me angry. It wanted cracks to crawl into. That night I saw it, just once, a shape in the trees. No face, no limbs, just a distortion in the dark, like light bending around something that shouldn't be there. A wrongness. Like a word you can't pronounce, but keeps echoing in your head anyway. It didn't move, it didn't approach, just watched. And the air ached around it, like grief, like fear you can't place. I closed the curtains. I haven't opened them since. Day 6, the journal was whole again, no rips, no burn marks, no trace of violence. New entry. You're almost ready. I haven't written since. I don't remember how many days it's been. The sun rises and sets, but the light doesn't change. Time moves sideways. I keep expecting the door to open, for help to come, for the road to reappear. But I think I left that world behind. I think I'm inside it now, whatever it is. I've started talking to the silence. It listens, it answers sometimes, but not with words, with feelings, with dreams. With the subtle rearranging of objects, I swear I didn't move. I've started sleeping better, not because I'm less afraid, but because I understand the fear now. It's not a warning. It's a welcome. I think of the others sometimes, the ones who came before me, the ones who left the journal, left footprints, left parts of themselves here. Maybe they're still around, not dead, just quiet enough to stay. Maybe that's what it wants. Not worship, not sacrifice, just company. I found a new entry this morning, still in my handwriting, still not mine. Now you write the silence, now you pass it on. So here I am, writing this, not to warn you, not to save you, but because you came looking. You found this cabin, you opened this journal, you wanted silence, didn't you? So take it. Listen. And don't make too much noise. It doesn't like when the silence breaks. It remembers. And now it remembers you.
The quiet thing upstairs. I didn't believe in ghosts until I moved into that house. Even now, I'm not sure ghost is the right word for it. It wasn't that simple. It wasn't that clean. It started after the move. I had just signed the lease on a small 2-bedroom in a quiet street just outside the city. It was one of those weather-beaten terrace houses, cheap, unloved, but solid. Perfect for someone trying to disappear without drawing attention. I'd just come out of a long-term relationship. 7 years. We split the furniture and the silence evenly. She got the friends. I got the emptiness. The house was cold. Not just drafty, cold. A sort of stale, weighty air that settled into the lungs like fog. The upstairs was worse. The first time I stepped into the back bedroom, I had a strange sense of vertigo, like the floor sloped away at a degree I couldn't quite measure. But I convinced myself it was just poor construction. The first few nights were fine, aside from the creaks. Old house, I told myself. Settling beams, expanding pipes, whatever. But by the end of the first week, I started waking up between 3 and 4 a.m., heart pounding, body rigid, no dreams, no noise, just awake. As if something had brushed me into consciousness. And then came the footsteps. Faint at first, just the suggestion of weight above me while I lay in the living room, staring blankly at a late-night infomercial. A creak, then another, slow, measured, moving from one end of the room to the other. But I lived alone. I thought it was rats or birds nesting in the roof. Maybe even a neighbor's movement bleeding through thin walls. But the sound didn't come from the walls. It came from above. I tried to ignore it, but the awareness of the sound burrowed into my routine. I stopped watching TV and started listening instead. Every night, same time, same pace. I started recording it. I'd set my phone to capture audio overnight. I'd wake up in the morning, review the file, and sure enough, 3:48 a.m., a soft, steady tread overhead. No variation, always the same steps, always the same rhythm. I told a co-worker, half joking. She said it was probably my subconscious acting out stress. Moving is traumatic, she said. You're projecting. Maybe she was right. So I stopped talking about it, but the idea lodged itself in my brain like a splinter. Things escalated the night I went upstairs and found the back bedroom door open. I never opened that room. I used it for boxes and nothing else. I kept the door shut, always. But that night, after hearing the steps more clearly than ever before, I decided to confront whatever animal or pipe or imagined fear had taken root in my head. The door stood ajar, just slightly. The room beyond was pitch black. I stepped in and immediately felt it, that oppressive wrongness, like I was trespassing somewhere I had no right to be. The air was colder. Still. Too still. I turned on the light. Nothing. Just boxes. A dead fly on the sill. A cracked mirror leaning against the far wall. I turned to leave and heard breathing. Not mine. Not imagined. It was a soft, hollow exhale, like someone had been holding their breath behind me. I spun around, heart in my throat, but the room was empty. The mirror looked wrong. It didn't reflect me properly, not entirely. The room was mirrored, yes, but I wasn't in it. Just the room. Empty. I closed the door, locked it, and didn't go upstairs again for 3 days. But things changed after that. It wasn't just sounds anymore. The lights began flickering. Always upstairs. Always in that back room. The hallway bulb would dim when I passed by, then flicker out entirely if I stood too long beneath it. I kept the heating on, but the upstairs stayed cold. Not physically. It was a different kind of cold. A watching cold. The kind that prickles the back of your neck when you're alone, and suddenly feel that you're not. I started seeing things. Movement. Shadows, maybe. Shapes that didn't belong. Once I caught a glimpse of something at the top of the stairs. A figure, barely visible, retreating into the dark. It didn't move like a person. It glided. No sound. No footsteps that time. Just the silence after. I convinced myself I was cracking under the weight of loneliness, so I invited a friend over. Sam. Rational, easygoing, a nurse with a deadpan sense of humor. She stayed for an hour before asking, "Does this house feel heavy to you?" I didn't say anything. Later, while I was making tea in the kitchen, she called to me. "Did you leave the radio on upstairs?" I didn't own a radio. We went up together. The hallway was colder than I remembered. I opened the back bedroom door with her beside me. Nothing inside. No sound. But she looked at the mirror and said, "That's messed up." She didn't explain what she meant, and I didn't ask. She left early. She hasn't answered my texts since. The days blurred. I stopped sleeping well. The dreams, when they came, were fragmented. A man standing in the hallway. A voice whispering through the walls in a language I didn't understand. My own reflection blinking when I didn't. I tried to leave, packed a bag, booked a hotel, but I couldn't step outside. Literally, couldn't. My hand froze on the doorknob. My breath caught. My legs locked. It felt like gravity had shifted, like leaving would tear something. And something watched. I couldn't see it, but it pressed in from all angles, heavy, expectant. So I stayed. I started writing in a notebook just to keep my mind straight, tracking the days, logging the sounds, the times. On day 36, I wrote, I think it wants to be known, not seen, known, understood. It's not angry. It's waiting. On day 42, the steps stopped last night, replaced by a sound like whispering paper, like something crawling on the ceiling. It doesn't come down anymore. It's closer. Today is day 50. I no longer go upstairs. I no longer need to. It comes to me now. Sometimes I see it from the corner of my eye. Not a shape, but a suggestion. An absence of space, like a smear of something dark behind the air itself. Sometimes it speaks, not out loud, but in meaning, in feelings that aren't mine. A pressure, a grief, a need. And sometimes, at night, I hear my name. Not from the room, not from the stairs, from inside the walls. It wants me to listen. It wants me to stay. And the worst part is, I don't think I want to leave anymore. The silence is heavier than the noise ever was. But there's comfort in it. Familiarity, like sinking into warm water and forgetting how to swim. I think I belong to it now. I think I always did.